So, if you are about to move abroad and you're imagining that your first week is going to be a dream, maybe lower your expectations just a tad because my first week in my dream country, Spain, was, let's just say, less than ideal. So first of all, I was sick like the whole first several days I was there, and I couldn't figure out why. I was eating healthy, I was taking it easy, and as far as like an international move, it had been relatively not that stressful, right? So I didn't think I was making myself physically ill. And the food was good, like really good and fresh. I had garbanzo beans that tasted like nothing I've ever had before in my life. Definitely not garbanzo beans in the US. And I just couldn't figure it out until I compared notes with a friend of mine who said she had also been feeling sick all the time. And she was like, I literally think the food is too fresh here. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's a lot of like fiber on my body. And it's a lot of fiber, like probably more fiber even in the same types of food as I had been eating in the US, given the food was so fresh. So literally the food is too fresh here, that it was making me feel ill. So even if you're going to your dream location, there can be things like that that come up. And speaking of dream locations, you have to see where my view is right now. I'm overlooking this yacht club on, the Mediterranean coast. So it gets better. It gets better is my message about moving abroad and the first week maybe being rough. But I do have to tell you a few other things that happened. First of all, the next thing that happened is that I had cockroaches. So I was in an Airbnb. It was a little bit cheaper than the rest of them around the area, and I just thought I found a good deal. But no, after spending a lot of time in bed because my stomach was in knots, I came out and tried to get some food, and near the door were not one, not two, but three gigantic dead roaches. So clearly this was an existing problem, and there was like roach poison somewhere because these roaches were
big and they were dead.
So, it took a lot to finish them off. So I immediately was like, I'm getting the F out of here, and I started packing up, and that's when I found a roach inside of the pocket of my suitcase. Now, thankfully, this was a suitcase that was at the very end of its life, and I was not going to keep using. I was basically just brought it over to make the trek across the Atlantic, and I was planning to get a new one. But you know what? I zipped that sucker up, and he's gonna live in there forever. I left that suitcase at this roach-infested Airbnb, and I immediately went out and got a new one. And yeah, I was not gonna play with an inch-long roach. I'm so sorry. So the lesson of that story is to not think that you found a good deal. If it's cheaper than anything around it, it's probably for a reason. And don't do that to yourself. If you can afford somewhere else, don't do that to yourself. So the next thing that happened is I had been sick so long and so unable to function that I hadn't gone and figured out my cell phone plan. So before I had left the US, I got I switched my phone over to Google Voice, which I highly recommend, and definitely watch videos on how to do it because I didn't do it exactly right, and I still need to fix some things once I go back to the US. But I got Google Voice, which means that I had no way of getting internet. I was flying blind, and I kept finding myself in situations where I'm like, oh, I guess I should have figured out how I got here, because now I have to navigate back without the assistance of technology, and I am very geographically challenged. So luckily I made, I did not get lost forever, and I didn't have to call in any police or anything like that. But the last thing that happened is I arrived in Spain at the end of spring, and I realized that the housing market is rough. I mean, I knew that already, but in spring it's especially awful because everything turns into a summer rental, especially in this part of the country in the Mediterranean. And so my advice to you is do not come in the spring and plan early. Okay, my batteries ran out, so I had to switch locations and charge my phone. But don't make my mistakes, and make sure that you do some really thorough research before you move to your new destination. But you know what? Even if you have some hiccups, and you will definitely have some hiccups, it is so worth it. You will figure it out. There are lots of Facebook communities and Reddit groups that will tell you in detail all the information you need. And, you know, it's so worth it. Look at this. It's 8 p.m. and it's still beautiful out on the Mediterranean. And I can't believe how lucky I am to live here. So, if you feel like your place is not where you are currently living, you're probably right. And it's worth at least trying. Okay.